I sold my grandma's ugly old painting for $50 and learned I'd basically thrown away $500,000, I swear. I'm not usually the kind of person who makes huge, life-changing mistakes before lunch, but this one is going to haunt me for years. It started on a quiet Saturday when my mom dragged me to Grandma, Eleanor's old house, to help clear out the last of her things. She passed a few months ago, and her storage room still looked like a time capsule nobody wanted to open. Half the stuff in there smelled like old paper and dust. We found boxes of outdated cookbooks, knitting projects she never finished, stacks of coupons from the early 2000s, even a broken radio she insisted she'd fix someday. I was ready to throw almost everything away just to get the room cleared before sunset. Then I found the painting. It was propped behind a rusted metal fan, wrapped in a thin layer of cobwebs. It showed a lakeside cabin under a stormy sky, with brushstrokes so textured they felt alive. The colors were muted, gloomy, almost unsettling. I didn't know anything about art, but it definitely didn't look like something from Walmart. Still, it wasn't exactly pretty. Mom barely glanced at it. "If you don't want it, just get rid of it," she said. "Your grandma picked up random junk all the time." So when an antique shop owner drove by and asked if we were selling anything interesting, I held out the painting like it was no big deal. He examined it for maybe 10 seconds, shrugged, and said, "I can give you $50 for it." $50 sounded great in that moment. I'd already thrown away half a dozen items, so getting paid for one felt like a bonus. I didn't think twice. I didn't even bargain. I just took the cash. 2 days later, my cousin Hannah called. Her voice was trembling. "Please tell me you didn't sell Grandma's cabin painting." My stomach instantly tightened. "I did? Why?" She inhaled sharply, like she was trying not to panic. "That wasn't just some thrift store painting. It's from a famous reclusive American artist, one whose early pieces are worth hundreds of thousands. And Grandma used to say he meant something to her." I felt every nerve in my body freeze. But then Hannah said something that made my chest go cold. "She didn't buy it, you know. He gave it to her. And she never told anyone the reason." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was that painting leaning against the antique shop's counter while I casually accepted $50 like an idiot. By morning, the guilt had settled into my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. $500,000. But honestly, the money wasn't even the part messing me up the most. It was the idea that Grandma had kept some massive secret, something tied to that artist. And I had just handed the only clue to a stranger. I drove to my mom's house first, needing answers or at least some kind of reassurance that maybe Hannah was exaggerating. Mom looked confused and tired when I explained everything. "That painting? Worth that much?" she said, rubbing her forehead. "Honey, your grandmother never talked about knowing any artists. She barely talked about her personal life at all." That wasn't comforting. It made everything feel even more suspicious. "Did you ever see her with anyone? Letters, photos?" Mom shook her head. "Your grandma kept her past locked up. She'd just say she lived a whole life before us." I never pushed. "A whole life before us." The words echoed in my head. Hannah wasn't much better when I called her back. She insisted Grandma once mentioned a man who painted storms. That was all she remembered. A weird poetic sentence that now felt way too literal. I couldn't sit still anymore. I drove straight to the antique shop, heart pounding. The sign on the door slapped me in the face. "Closed until Thursday." Perfect. Just my luck. I peered through the window anyway, hoping maybe I'd see the painting propped somewhere inside. Nothing. Just shadows and shelves. Standing on the sidewalk, I felt this mix of frustration and panic rising. I didn't want to tell anyone else in the family yet. I didn't want to be the guy who sold a priceless family heirloom because he didn't bother to look it up. But part of me also wondered, why did Grandma keep it hidden? Why was it shoved behind a broken chair like something she didn't want found? That question stuck with me as I sat in my car. If the painting was truly worth $500,000, why didn't Grandma ever sell it? Why keep it secret unless the truth behind it was something she never wanted anyone to find? And now it was out there somewhere because of me. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. I woke up before my alarm, threw on the first clothes I saw, and drove straight to the antique shop. The lights were on this time, and the owner, Mr. Randall, was sweeping the floor like he had all the time in the world. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. The moment he unlocked the door, I stepped inside. "Hey, remember that painting I sold you?" I asked, trying to sound calm, but probably failing miserably. He raised an eyebrow. "The lake cabin one?" "Yeah, what about it?" I swallowed. "I need it back. I'll pay more. Whatever you sold it for, He stopped sweeping. "Son, I didn't sell it." My lungs expanded with relief for about 1 second. "I sent it to a private appraiser. It looked unusual. I figured it might be worth something. They were supposed to get back to me today." My relief twisted instantly into this messy mix of dread and hope. "So it's still with the appraiser?" He nodded. "Should be. But if it's what I think it is, I'm gonna need more than $50 to hand it back." I couldn't even argue. "Call them, please." He sighed like I'd ruined his morning, but he dialed the number anyway. I watched his face closely. His eyebrows lifted, then pulled together. Then he turned slightly away like someone was telling him something serious. serious. When he hung up, he didn't speak right away. Good news and bad news, he said finally. Good news. The painting is definitely valuable. Bad news. The appraiser sent it to a higher-level specialist. Someone who authenticated early works from, well, big names. My stomach sank. Where is it now? New York. It felt like a punch. New York? Why didn't they ask permission? They don't usually need it if the shop requests full evaluation. He shrugged. Relax, kid. You'll get it back. But something in his tone told me he wasn't entirely confident. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about Grandma, about that hidden room, about how she never talked about her past. I kept replaying every memory I had of her. Little habits, small comments, things I'd never paid attention to. If this artist had been part of her life, even briefly, why hide it? Why bury the painting under junk? Why never mention something that valuable? When I got home, I found a box from Grandma's things sitting on my front step. Mom must have dropped it off. And taped on top was a note in Grandma's handwriting, for when you're ready to know the truth. I didn't even go inside my house. I sat right there on the front step with the box on my lap, staring at Grandma's handwriting like it might fade if I blinked too hard. For when you're ready to know the truth. The E. Words felt heavier than the box itself. Part of me wanted to rip it open instantly, but another part was scared, actually scared of what I'd find. Grandma wasn't dramatic. She didn't write cryptic notes. She didn't do mystery. So what kind of truth was she talking about? I finally peeled off the tape and opened the box. Inside, there were just a few things. An old leather-bound journal, a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon, a small photograph, and a folded receipt from some art supply store dated the year before I was born. Everything smelled like dust and lavender, the same scent Grandma always carried. I picked up the photo first. It was black and white, slightly bent at the corners. Grandma was young in it, maybe in her 20s, standing beside a tall, scruffy-looking man with paint on his clothes and a cigarette between his fingers. His eyes were intense, even in a grainy picture. My chest tightened. I knew instantly this had to be him, the painter, the man who painted storms. But why had she never shown us this? I opened the journal next. The first few pages were normal. Grocery lists, random memories, notes about her garden. Then halfway through, the tone changed. The handwriting tightened. The dates skipped weeks. And finally, I hit a page with a sentence that felt like someone had dropped ice water down my back. He asked me to keep the painting safe. He said it was the only one he created during the darkest year of his life. I promised him I'd never sell it. I read the line over and over. Never sell it. A promise. And I had broken it without even knowing it existed. The letters were even worse. They were from him, all signed with the same initials, DR. Some were short, some rambling, some almost poetic. But one line in particular made my heart stop. If anything ever happens to me, the painting will explain what I couldn't. I leaned back against the step, the journal open on my lap, feeling completely out of my depth. The painting wasn't just valuable, it was a message, maybe even a confession. And now it was in New York, being examined by people who had no idea what it meant. And maybe neither did I. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing that line from the letter. The painting will explain what I couldn't. It felt like the kind of sentence people wrote when they were holding on to something heavy, something dangerous, something that didn't fit neatly into a family story you share over dinner. I kept flipping through the journal, hoping for more, but the entries after that became vague, like Grandma had started editing herself out of her own memories. The next morning, I called the New York specialist directly. The number wasn't easy to get, and I had to pretend to be the antique shop owner's assistant just to get through. When a woman finally picked up, she sounded rushed. Yes, the lake cabin piece. We're still examining it, she said. I tried to keep my voice steady. Can you tell me anything? Our shop needs an update. She paused for a long beat. It appears to be an early work by Daniel Rourke, one of the few from his missing year. That word, missing, hit me like a slap. Missing year? I repeated. Yes, she said, sounding distracted. He disappeared for 12 months in the late 70s. No records, no art, no public sightings. This painting is unusual. It's darker than his other work. There's something hidden beneath the layers. We're using infrared to analyze it. I sat up straight. Hidden? I'll call the shop when we have a full report. And she hung up before I could say anything else. I just stared at my phone, heart hammering. A hidden layer? A missing year? Grandma's promise? All of it started connecting in ways that scared me more than relieved me. By noon, Hannah showed up at my house without warning. She looked both furious and terrified. Mom told me you found some box, she said. Why didn't you tell me? I handed her the journal and the letters. She read silently for minutes, her expression shifting from confusion to shock to something almost like grief.
So Grandma knew him, she whispered.
Really knew him. I think maybe they were more than friends, I said quietly. And something happened that year. Hannah sank onto my couch. What if the painting isn't just valuable? What if it holds something people aren't supposed to know? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was the specialist from New York. A simple text. We need to talk immediately. It's about what we found underneath the paint. My hands shook as I opened the text. The message included a number and the words call now. I didn't even think. I dialed immediately. Hannah sat beside me, gripping the journal like it was the only solid thing left in the room. The specialist picked up on the first ring. This is Dr. Keller. Are you with the antique shop? No, I said, voice cracking. I'm the grandson of the woman who owned the painting. Please, just tell me what you found. There was a long pause. Too long. All right, she finally said, but you need to prepare yourself. The infrared scan showed a second image painted underneath. It's a portrait, a woman. The same woman who appears in several of Rourke's private photographs. My heart stilled. Is she? Yes, she said softly. We believe the woman is your grandmother. Hannah let out a tiny gasp. I tried to swallow, but my throat felt too tight. Why would he hide her? Why paint over it? That's where things get complicated, Dr. Keller continued. Rourke disappeared the same year this underpainting was created. There were rumors of a relationship, a fallout, and something traumatic. We don't know the details, but this painting, both layers, suggest it wasn't just artistic inspiration. It was personal, intimate. I felt the room tilt around me. There's more, she said. The bottom corner of the hidden portrait contains a handwritten note, sealed under the pigment. We haven't fully revealed it yet, but we can already read the first line. She hesitated. It says, I'm sorry for what this will cost you. My skin crawled. Hannah covered her mouth, shaking. Cost her what? I whispered. That, Dr. Keller said quietly, might be why the painting was never meant to surface. It may be tied to an incident Rourke was investigated for but never charged in. Your grandmother may have protected him, perhaps at great personal expense. I ended the call without remembering how. I just sat there, numb. Hannah finally spoke. So Grandma hid a man's confession, a man she loved, and she carried that alone her whole life. I nodded slowly, and I sold it for $50. But then Hannah gripped my arm. You didn't know. And maybe she didn't want us to find it. Not until now. I looked at the journal, the letters, the ghost of a woman we clearly never really knew. Grandma's note echoed in my head, for when you're ready to know the truth. Maybe this, messy, painful, unfinished, was the truth she meant. And now that truth was finally ours to carry.